Let's talk about the responsibility we have in the face of death. Hi, my man. You didn't get a video yesterday, but that's okay. Let's get into it. So, if you weren't aware, let me make you aware. Recently, one of my friends died, and it's something I'm trying to wrap my head around in such a way that the concept of death and what it means to have your last words be something that you regretted. And it's something that we don't talk about enough. What your last words are gonna be, or how does death motivate us in a specific way. And I wanna give reference to a topic that I remember talking about with my friend. As I told them I don't like flowers. I don't like flowers because I don't like the concept that we need to kill flowers in order for us to appreciate it. And that concept of death is really interesting because my friend dying allowed me to see how much they did in my life, allowed me to see how much I was grateful for them being in my life. Them not being present was what allowed me to love them as much as I do right now. But I always felt that was a bit flawed. Why should it take dying for us to appreciate something? Why should the whole concept of absent makes the heart fonder be something we even think about in the first place? Why should it that death make the heart fonder? Why should it that should even be a concept in the first place? But absence is what's really necessary. The absence of having something is what showed you how much they impact your life. The absence of not having something is what showed you your own ungratefulness, your own unappreciativeness of that person, of not having that in your life. And then when you don't have it, you really start to wonder, wow, damn, I don't have this in my life, and I really love this, and I really need this. And I'm in this state of navigating that. I'm in this state of allowing death to be present, allowing death to be something that's in my mind, and allowing myself to be appreciative of every moment, but not allowing death to hug and tug me in different directions. Because I do believe if we started talking about more the concept of death, we would grow a certain level of appreciation for people. And I think that's the main thing. We don't have appreciation for people. And that is really what made me wonder about the flowers. About if I have flowers and they die, why don't I not just have them and appreciate them in a very specific thing? Allow them to make my day, allow them to be good, allow them to put a smile on my face, and appreciate them for the moment that they are there. And I think a lot of people die not knowing that they are loved because we don't allow ourselves to appreciate until it's gone. We don't allow ourselves to appreciate until we don't have it anymore. And that is because we don't talk about death enough. We don't talk about the concept of death enough, and that is necessary. We should not allow that when death finally comes up, when we finally do have death, that is when we learn to appreciate. That is when we learn to see how much we have. When we let go, that is when we finally learn to love. And a lot of the times we as humans are very stubborn, and it's only then when we have lost what we have lost do we finally realize how much privilege and how much things we had to be grateful for when it is gone. It's only when it is gone do we establish a certain level of gratefulness. And him dying, I'll open my mind to so much. I'm thinking in reference to the Bell Hooks All About Love book, where she talks about death and talks about us allowing death to permeate our lives and allowing death to be present, because it is always present. We just don't open the door enough to talk about death. We don't open our hearts to talk about the ungratefulness and the unappreciativeness that we have regarding our lives, regarding this death, because We don't want to face death. We don't want to face the concept that we have to be careful with what we're operating with. We don't want to face the fact that we have to take responsibility for how we treat people, because you never know when they're gonna die. You never know when you're not gonna have them anymore. You never know what your last words to a person could be. And that leaves a lot of people in a certain state of regret. That it left me in a specific state of regret, because I never got to say my last words to my best friend. Never. And that made me question so much of myself. That made me question so much of who I am and what I am doing in this life, and how I'm treating people. What are my last words gonna be? How am I gonna move? And me allowing death to permeate my life, not to linger over it in a state of fear, because that's not what I want, but allowing myself to understand the importance of appreciativeness, the understanding of what my last words could be, the understanding that at any moment we could all die and that would be it. We don't know if there's a heaven or hell. We don't know if there's reincarnation. All we know is that after we die, that is it. And the allowance of knowing that after we die, that is it, is allowing ourselves to be open to the idea that we need to operate in life with a certain level of gratefulness, with a certain level of appreciativeness, with a certain level of operating in so much love that we have no regret of letting that person know how much they were loved. Because my only regret is that I did not allow myself to let him know how much he was loved as my friend. And if we allowed life, if we allow the concept of death to not to linger, not to destroy us, not to torment us, but if we allow the concept of death to be open, if we allow death to open the door to appreciativeness, to a gratefulness, if we allowed absence to actively make the heart fonder, instead of, if we allowed the topic of absence, not just absence, because I don't want it that we reach a state that we, the people in around us, have to be absent. I don't want it that we reach a state that the people in our lives have to die for us to understand. I want it to be that the topic of absence allows our heart to be open to the concept of allowing love to permeate our lives, because without love we have nothing. And I think it's so necessary that we talk about these topics. I think it's so necessary that we talk about death. I think it's so necessary that death opens up the door to appreciativeness, to gratefulness, to basking in what is right now. Because you never know when it's gonna go. I want that death allows us to reside within the present moment with a certain level of awe. Because we are allowed to witness this life. We are allowed to grace this life. We are allowed to taste this life. And at any moment it could go, and that is what I want. I don't really have much questions. I just have this level of appreciativeness for what life has offered me now. I have this level of gratefulness to just exist within the moment, because that is what we need. I don't want us to reach a state that absence has to make our life, our heart fonder. I wanted that we could enjoy each moment without regret. And even though regret is sometimes inevitable, it is. Because you never know when that last argument is going to be your last argument. Even though it is somewhat, even though death is somewhat unavoidable and it is inevitable, we should not allow the concept of death and the topic of death to not open our hearts and open our minds to something new and something great. Because I do believe everything in life has a lesson, has a meaning, has something, even if it's a tiny bit of something for us to face ourselves and learn to love once again. Learn to love in a different way, learn to love in a very specific way, and I want us to experience it. I want us to experience a life that is so delicious, that is so great, that we want nothing but to be so immersed in our lives once again. And I know it's hard, but we need to face ourselves with the concept of death. And If we want love to permeate into our lives, we need to allow every moment, every aspect of life to permeate into our lives. And an aspect of life that will permeate into our lives is death. We can't run from it. We could dislike it and fear it as much as we want, but we can't. And that's what I want for us. If you want to have a conversation, if you want to have any topics, I feel free to comment. I will try to respond as best as I can. And I love you, my darling. Bye.